Well, if we're gonna find any ghosts, we better split up.
You're listening to Never Split Up, a horror movie podcast.
There are certain rules that one must abide by in order to successfully survive a horror movie.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Never Split Up podcast. My name's Nolan, along with Anthony. How you doing today, Anthony?
I'm doing good. I'm happy we're getting to the swing and we're just about, in the thick of spooky season. Mid-September. I love it.
We're just about there. Did you get your decorations up yet? You starting early?
I got my inside is getting there. I'll do the outside, next week or something. But yeah, we're getting there.
Oh, that's a big task. You have a lot of stuff you got to get up.
I know.
I see. If I were you, and I strive to be like you one day with your front yard, I would get that shit up as soon as Labor Day ends. Like, I would get my money's worth.
Know. I've been slacking.
Yeah. That's cool. But yes, another installment of the Never Split Up podcast. Today, we're going a little bit different direction, something we haven't done yet. We're taking it way back to 1931. We're covering the original Dracula. So excited for this episode just to talk about what it means for cinema and the horror genre and vampires and everything, pretty much. It's such an important movie. We figured we obviously kick off the Universal monsters with Dracula. You have to. And then we'll get into the rest of them, later on at some other point. But how do you feel about Dracula? Are you excited to cover this?
Yeah, I'm very excited. I'm really happy because it gave me an excuse to go back and rewatch it. I haven't seen it in a few years, so It was a great rewatch.
Oh, it's so cool to just kind of put on. I forget how nice it is to kind of, even if you're relaxing on your phone, and just like throw it on like in an October night or September night and just kind of get yourself into that spooky vibe. Yeah.
Agreed. 100%.
And I wouldn't say, obviously it doesn't hold up today because, if this came out today, but it still holds up because of the performances. And of course, we're going to talk about Bela Lugosi. He just embodies the character so much. He's the first to do it. He is the standard. Whether he's your favorite or not, you have to admit that he is kind of the gold standard that everyone strives to be. But yeah, I'm excited too. Do you want to talk about anything before we get into it? I know we had pretty good reception on Immaculate, our big comeback episode. Thank you guys so much for welcoming us back after our long break and tuning into that episode. I can't wait to post that Never Split Up poll for that to see what you guys think and who you agree with most. I'm excited to hear from you guys. But yeah, did you want to shout anyone out or say anything before we get into it?
No, just want to appreciate everyone, welcoming us back. I know it's been a few months, so the reception was great to see, and that you guys haven't, left us hanging, that you're still with us for the ride. And yeah, we're just excited to be more consistent and, get back with it. So we have a lot of good, fun stuff planned for the next month, and we're hoping to stick with a nice routine so we don't leave you guys for too long again. So thank you again for checking out Immaculate, and if you haven't yet, share the episode, try to subscribe to our YouTube. We're trying to, get that up so YouTube's algorithm kind of improves a little bit so we can get on more people's feeds. Yeah, it's very exciting. So thank you guys.
Keep a lookout and follow us on our socials. Similar to last Halloween, we will be posting a schedule breakdown of our Halloween season starting pretty much in the beginning of October. We're going to get that out to you guys because there's a lot of big episodes coming your way. So we want you to be prepared. And we don't want to surprise you with anything, so it'll be fun. It's going to be fun. It's going to go by fast, just like last year. I remember last year.
Flew by.
Ooh, that flew. Yeah, it does every year, but it's the greatest time of year. So
yes, it is.
Super exciting. But for now, let's stick with Dracula. Let's go over. You can go over the cast, I guess, but it's
I'll go over just
people that are dead. So
I'll just reiterate what Nolan said, that it came out in 1931, so this is almost 100 years old, which is pretty fascinating that we're talking about a movie that's, a century old, and it's just it's crazy what this movie did for the genre, but we'll get to it. It was directed by Todd Browning. It stars Bela Lugosi, and it was a big, huge deal when it came out. Obviously, it's part of the Universal Monster Crew, and it just it changed the game for cinema, and it changed the game for horror. It changed the game for monsters. It's just crazy what this movie did. So I'm just so excited just to talk about this on like a macro level that like people don't even realize in movies today like that this movie is being referenced, and it's just, you know, it'll never ever go away. So it's pretty fascinating. Yeah.
Touche to everything you just said. So we don't have to get into like our overall thoughts on whether we recommend. I mean, I recommend the movie if you're into the horror genre, which I know everyone is, because it's really fun to just go back. If you haven't seen this movie, it's really fun to go back and just kind of see where it all began. You know, there's a few movies, and Dracula is one of them from this time period that really formed the horror genre as we know it. And right. It's almost, I would dare say, essential viewing for someone who considers themselves a horror fan, and especially a vampire fan if you're into vampires. It's just, yeah, we'll get into how important it is and everything, but it's a recommend for me. Of course it's a recommend for you, right?
It's a fucking must watch. This is why we have horror cinema. I mean, Nosferatu came out in 1922, and the only reason it's called that and not Dracula is because the director couldn't get the rights to Dracula, so it's another version of this story. So these two, and again, I don't want to talk about Nosferatu too much because I would like to cover that movie before the new one comes out, so I don't get into that too much. But yeah, those two movies are what kicked it off, and it's the reason why we have, you know, the creature feature. It's the reason why we have a horror genre, in my opinion, in general, with all these Universal monster movies. And for me, it's like so many movies I love. I mean, like Monster Squad is one of my favorite movies, and that just harkens back to the monster movies and Dracula. I can't even list all the different iterations of Dracula. Obviously, I just said there's a new Nosferatu movie coming out this year. You know, we had Renfield, the horror, like, you know, Renfield did a twist on the story. We have a bunch of Dracula remakes. I can't even tell you how many Dracula.
Hundreds
movies.
of adaptations.
But you know what I mean? They all, thanks to this one is the reason why we have that. It's the reason why we have so many tropes in horror. It's the reason why so many different things were created was because I think it's the reason why we have a horror genre. I mean, I love vampire movies. I mean, spoiler alert, we're going to be talking about vampire movies for the next couple weeks, and next week is my favorite vampire movie of all time that we're going to be talking about. Again, the lead vampire is a little more in line with Nosferatu than this, but this is the reason why we have vampire movies. This is the reason why we have a horror genre. This is the reason why we have so many horror tropes. We'll get into them, but I mean, like the mind control thing, you know, I mean, there's so many tropes that we see in this that it's like, oh, that's where it came from. It's just, I don't even know if iconic is the right word, because it's more than that. It's just, it's legend. It's like the reason why cinema, it's just pure cinema. And I think that, you know, this movie's old. It's Gen Z. I mean, this movie's timeless. Just give it a chance. I mean, I think it's a timeless movie, and I think when I watch it, and I'll be the first to admit, I don't watch this every year or like multiple times a year like I do Scream and Halloween. Those movies are like part of my DNA. That's me. But every time I do watch it, I'm like, oh, it just puts me in such a good mood, and I just feel like I'm watching something that people put so much care into, and it wasn't just, I know business is business and people make movies to make money, but you just really feel like this was just made to do something different, and that you can tell they were doing something special. You know, I know they're sets, but practical effects and the sets and some locations, I still get more wrapped up in this than I do than half of the movies these days where it's all like green screen. It's like, they're really, really doing it. They're in the nitty gritty and they're making it happen. So, I mean, yeah, we can keep talking about this for, you know, however long you want, but it's more than special. It's the fucking start of the horror genre. So, I mean, you got to give this the kudos it deserves. And I don't even know if I feel comfortable rating it because it's just the reason why we're here right now, but we'll get to it. Yeah,
I know. I have so much anxiety, and I don't even want to think about that. I'm gonna just make a in the moment decision when we get there.
Yeah.
but we can't shy away from it. We have to do it. It's so tough because you have to just put it all into context, like you said. It's more than iconic. If you've never seen this movie, you have to sit down knowing how important this is and giving it a fair shot for the time period. You know, stuff like, I think its strong points are its cinematography and its establishing shots.
Beautiful. The
establishing shots of Dracula's castle. Oh, iconic, you know, perfection. And this is 1931.
And it looks great, now.
Yes,
I was impressed today when I rewatched it. I'm like, holy shit.
I know. Yeah. I watched it on Prime. I don't know if you have like a hard copy of the movie. But it looks great.
But I slacked, and I also watched it on Prime, and it looked awesome.
Yeah, it looked great. And as I was saying, it's 1931. I mean, there was no real concept of any of this stuff. So these filmmakers it was literally the Wild West of Hollywood, where they were just kind of, you know, not to do a play on words, but they were establishing what an establishing shot was. I mean, it's all
literally,
you know, the first of many things. So when we go through this movie, and I know people know this, and people that are listening, they know this already, but it's just really hard not to emphasize how groundbreaking this movie was. And it's just so special. Every time I watch it, I kind of watch it like with a smile on my face. Just, I'm so appreciative of everyone involved who made this, and particularly Bela Lugosi, who just, you know, puts his all into the role. I feel so, I almost get depressed because it's like, if only he was born like 80 years later and he could have been in like a modern movie and played Dracula, because he would have killed it. And today he would have killed it as Dracula. I mean, he was so ahead of his time with his facial acting and his, you know, his prowess, the way he walked. I mean, he literally, this is going to be the word of the night, but he established that character, and people have been chasing it ever since. So, all right, let's start with him now, Bela Lugosi. Let's just start with him. I've already said in the past, he was on, Dracula was on my villains list, my classic villains list, and I said, you know, Bela Lugosi is Dracula for me. I do like other Draculas, you know, Dracula as a character I just love, but Bela Lugosi, when someone says the word Dracula, he's who I instantly go to. Is it the same for you? Do you have a personal favorite Dracula that's your go-to?
It's tough because I do love, you know, a lot of the Draculas that come along the way, but I think, you know, to put things into perspective, all of the other Draculas, and I wouldn't call it imitation because I don't think that's fair to the other artists who portray Dracula, but I think it's paying respect, and I think each one does something to pay respect to Bela Lugosi, so I think it's a foregone conclusion that, like, he's the ultimate, obviously, and he is the one who started it, and he, you know, arguably probably did it best. I know, and I know other actors had different advantages of technology, and all that, but I think because when they make it their own, but every single one also does something to pay respect to him, so I just think it goes without saying. I mean, the first shot when you see him turn around for the first time, it's just like, he is Dracula. Like, there's just, he's Dracula. Like, you know what I mean? It's him.
I still get shivers when I see that.
Me too. I was just like, well, you keep saying established, but that, like, establishing shot of him when he turns around, I'm like, whoo, cinema. And that's, again, like, that is something that created, like, in a lot of horror, like, the zoom in shot, the slow zoom. It's like these little things that this filmmaker and Bela Lugosi, that what they're doing, it's like, this is some things that are still being done today because of this movie, and people don't even think about it, but it's crazy to put in perspective what this movie did. And I like how you said it's movie, like, established a lot when they were making it. I always think about how creative they probably had to get, because they didn't have all these technical advantages when they were making it, but they still delivered what a perfect, like, quality movie. So the creativity that had to go into this, like, major kudos. Major.
Now, I don't know the history of the making of this movie, if they had, like, a decent budget for back in the day, but you're right, because this is such a grandiose concept of a movie. I mean, you're in Transylvania, you're in Dracula's castle, you're in London, you're back at, you know, there's so many different what's the word, themes and settings,
locations alone,
locations,
like
yeah. So it's cool how creative they had to get, and I don't know how many different locations they actually shot at, but I'm assuming they shot at different locations, not just, sound stages. And yeah, you're right. We could talk about Bela Lugosi for the entire episode, and we just might, because he's that important. He just has a presence to him. He has a stage presence that is just unmatched. And I like what you said, how every other iteration of Dracula kind of pays homage to Bela in one way or another, because he was the first, and because he pretty much created the character out of thin air. I know it was a book, but it's very different. A book is very different from bringing that
on screen
onto the screen. So it's really hard not to pick him as the defining Dracula.
I mean, he literally, I mean, just his physical movements, it's Dracula. I like what you just said, like it was obviously a book, but when something's brought to screen, like a little fun fact, and to bring our younger audiences into perspective of 1931, like when this was released on opening weekend in theaters, like audiences have never seen something like this, so they were fainting in like shock of what they were seeing. I know it's silly to think of now, but that's what happened, and the movie was a cultural phenomenon. And I just read something that within 48 hours of opening in New York, it had sold like 50,000 tickets and just kept building momentum. People were fainting in shock and like screaming in horror on the screen. But I know it's silly to think of now, but to think of transporting yourself back 100 years to seeing this on the opening night, it's a huge deal for cinema, and it's still one of Universal's largest successes. I mean, it's arguably their most like known character is a horror villain, which is awesome. It's just a big deal. This movie is a huge deal.
I love doing that, especially watching these old movies, just trying to transport myself back into the movie theater in 1931. Right. It's an impossible thing to do, obviously, but I try to put myself in that mind frame. And I feel like that's the mindset you need to have if you're being objective to a movie like this that's this old, because you can't...
I agree.
You can't, rate it to our standards today. That's just impossible. But, it's
the reason why we have those standards today, too. So it's like,
yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I love also, I'm just kind of jumping around, but I love the use of silence in this movie, and I think that's something that is not, I don't know if you took it, but it's the silent scenes.
I was going to comment on that.
Go ahead. Movies today, I love scores in music in movies, but I think what makes this movie so effective in a lot of moments is the silence, and I think that's one of this movie's best friends, is how the lack of score and the lack of music, it kind of pulls me in more. It makes me feel more uncomfortable, and it's brilliant the way the lack of sound is used versus a lot of movies today use sounds. I wouldn't say gimmick, but sometimes it is a gimmick. It uses a sound to get a reaction rather than focusing on the scene and what's happening, and it's literally just watching what's unfolding without anything trying to make you feel something. It's just so I thought that today, when I rewatched it, I really took note of silence is key.
I love how you brought that up, and you said earlier how the filmmakers had to really be creative. They use the score and then the lack of score as audio cues to help put you in that setting. So we get the score when he's riding through the Transylvania, through the town and stuff. We get the music, and then when he gets to Dracula's castle, there's one sequence in particular when he first gets there that is completely silent.
Yep. And
it really gives you that isolated feel, like, okay, this guy's probably in some danger. Those town folk were right about something. Something's not right. And it's just great. And on top of that, the added layer is, because this is a movie before digital effects, which means before the mute button, you hear that old grainy footage in the background. Yeah. There is no so silence. Charming. You say silence, but there really is no silence. But it adds a layer of creepiness, at least to me.
So weird.
Just hearing that footage the whole time. And it's brilliant. I love it so much.
I agree, because I almost feel like that noise you're talking about adds to the silence in some weird way.
Yeah,
And I love it. It's so weird.
It's like a
I
heavy
love it.
silence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I even like, I mean, the spiders look fucking awesome in this. I don't care, like, it's fake, but, like, half the spiders today, you can, like, that's computer-generated shit, but, like, they look fucking cool. Like, I know they're, you know, this is so,
they look better than the
charming.
bats, for sure. They look
Yeah,
better than
well,
bats.
yeah, the bat flying and but, like, it's just so, like, I agree with you. Like, I have a smile on my face, like, this entire movie, because I'm like, this is awesome.
It's awesome, yeah. It's such a treat to be able to watch these movies on our TVs. Like, you just a couple clicks of the button and we can literally go back in history and watch history. That's what makes cinema so cool, because it's living history. I mean, you can go back and be in opening night, you know, you see the same exact thing, that even better, an enhanced version, honestly, because it's an enhanced, you know, HD version. But that's what I love about cinema and going back and watching these old movies, and it's just a record. It's, you know, it's a living, breathing record of what's come before us. What this movie is so quotable. I want to talk about some of like the quotes.
I literally have written down like dialogue means so much.
It does. And
I think that's also like, there's so many iconic lines that I'm just like, every scene I'm like, oh my god, I forgot this conversation, this line. But so dialogue is also this movie's huge strength. And again, I think movies need to realize that having dialogue and interactions and, you know, talking scenes isn't a bad thing, even in a horror movie, because it just enhances everything and makes you care about the characters and what's happening even more. It's okay to just take a step back and breathe rather than get to the next scare or get to the next kill. Like, you know, time in between is just as important. So again, you can take it from here, but I think the dialogue is just next level.
And of course, that came from necessity, because, you know, back then they couldn't have these giant sequences every other minute, so they had to have dialogue thrown in, and a lot of it, because they pretty much treated movies almost like plays in a way. Kind of was still kind of like that gray area. They were still transitioning to what like a movie really is, if that makes sense. So it was out of necessity, but I think it works in hindsight like tremendously. There are still lines in this movie that I quote almost on a daily basis. I mean,
without even knowing half the time, I'm like, oh yeah, it's from this movie.
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorites of all time in all of cinema is, you know, listen to them, children of the night, what music they make. I mean, come on, does it get better than that?
It doesn't.
There are far worse things awaiting man than death. I'm like, oh man, this guy's awesome every time I watch it. It's fucking Dracula, man.
It's next level. And again, the delivery, we'll go back to delivery of Bela. Look, everyone in the movie is great, but the delivery of Bela Lugosi, like every line, I'm like, oh,
it just hangs in the air. Talk about delivery. The hypnosis scenes, dude. I'm getting hypnotized through the screen from Bela. It's like, dude, what the fuck kind of black magic is he working? I like, come on, man, and I don't believe in any of that stuff, but I'm like, holy shit, I can actually see that working on me. Yeah. All right, so let's move on a little bit. I think, although Bela Lugosi and Dracula is obviously the standout, I really like the side characters in this movie. I think
I love Renfield.
They are very memorable. I mean, Renfield is just fucking crazy.
Again, these characters, like talking about Renfield and Van Helsing. Like
Van Helsing, dude, what a G, man. Like, talk about a competent, awesome character that is very smart. It's kind of this movie kind of turns into a game of wits in the third act between Van Helsing and Dracula. You know, Dracula thinks he has the upper hand the whole time when when really Van Helsing is a one step ahead. So I love that dynamic. I think that their scenes together in particular. I do think if I could be critical, just quickly. There is a part in the movie where it does kind of drag for me, and that's I have it in my notes here exactly when it happens. So after the mirror scene, when he finds Dracula doesn't reflect in the mirror.
Oh, it doesn't see him. Gotcha.
Yeah. After that scene, there's a whole sequence of them just kind of talking to each other in the house, and it kind of drags. until we get to the next
The
part
attack and all
where
that, right?
Dracula comes back. Yeah, it's a little long in the tooth. But other than that, I it's that I wanted to bring that up because I didn't just want this to be like a, us gushing for an hour. I wanted to kind of
it's so hard
try
not
to be
yeah.
critical a little bit. But that was really the only thing I could come up with. That was it. So.
Yeah, and I'll just give a shout out. I mean, they're Van Helsing's played by Edward Van Sloan, and Renfield's played by Dwight Fry. I'm not familiar too much with the old timey actors like this old, but I mean, they both do fantastic work alongside Bela Lugosi, and I think that Van Helsing enters the stage at the perfect moment in the movie. Like I like when he comes in to help out, and it's just I don't know. I do think it's paid, but I guess there's a couple scenes that are dialogue heavy for a little bit too long. But I do think overall the pace is great for a movie that's 75 minutes.
Oh, yeah, I do too. And the reason I brought that up is because there are some scenes without Van Helsing or Dracula. And those other characters, when they're kind of talking together, kind of, okay, like, where are my boys at? Like, let's get them back on screen. But that's it. That's really the only. Like,
where are my boys?
Yeah. But then once we get through that, then we get the big the second face off between. It's not really a face off, but it's a face off of words. When Dracula comes back through the window and Van Helsing is there to meet him, and it's great. It's an awesome scene. It's probably one of the more memorable scenes for me that I look forward to when I watch this movie. When they kind of when he knows pretty much that he's Dracula and that he's a vampire, and that battle of words is really fun. Right before he takes what's her name? Right before he takes Mina.
Yeah. And I agree with that because I also think it like adds to the ending when they have the final confrontation. That when we're here, like we're like, oh shit, we're getting the tensions built even there. We're at the plateau of that, and obviously where it ends is it's great. And I guess we can talk about the tropes. I mean, in general, we are called Never Split Up. I mean, again, this movie is it's not like a slasher, but I mean, I don't even know if we're going to do a Never Split Up movie, but, Renfield, dude, like, what you doing for how, like, you're showing up to this place, you're going in, but, I mean, this movie is a movie that introduced so many horror tropes, like the Never Split Up. I mean, the vampire mannerisms alone, like, how many other vampire movies try to imitate and pay respect to this one. There's mind control in it, which is a part of so many different kind of horror movies. I mean, I can keep going, like the bats and the spiders. I mean, it's just a movie that created so many tropes. I'm sure the director didn't even know that they were going to be tropes. They were just doing it to make a movie. So it's pretty fascinating, the lasting impression it had.
Yeah. Yeah, touche. I mean, there's really nothing more to be said.
Right.
There's so many tropes. Just watch the movie. If you haven't watched the movie in a while, watch it with this lens and you'll see, just how many things continued on into cinema history, and especially the horror genre. It's just they're building blocks, right? I mean, It started with Nosferatu. That was the first building block, and then we have Dracula, and then we have movies of we have Hitchcock movies. We get into those, and we get into the 60s and 70s, and it's just building off each other. And that's kind of what I was talking about, how I love going back and watching kind of the history unfold, and these establishing we'll say that word again, these establishing tropes. But while we're on the subject of side characters, before we stray too far and we wrap it up, I do want to give a shout out to Dwight Fry, because I do think he was really great as Renfield. I mean, the contrast between Renfield in the opening sequence when he arrives and he's still sane in Dracula's castle to, I believe, so he gets knocked out and they go onto the ship, and by the time we're on the ship, he's all whacked out. Like it goes from 0 to 100 with him.
Yeah,
and it's a really good performance by him. He really showed his.
He's the
range.
perfect kind of cuckoo. Yeah,
yeah, those crazy eyes that he has, those bulging eyes. I mean, damn, kudos to him. I just want to give him a shout out, because he did have some cool scenes throughout the in the talk about tropes. The crazy guy that nobody listens to that's in the asylum and stuff. But Van Helsing
eating the flies and the spiders, like
yeah. Yeah, I love the doctor who's taking care of him. He's like, "Oh, what? Flies aren't good enough for you anymore?"
It's so funny.
Yeah, that's great.
And you're right, because these actors at this point, they still, I mean, actors today, obviously, they have to be super talented, but they couldn't hide behind anything. It was just them in the scene. No, special. It was just them. They're the reason why these movies work. They can't hide behind it. It's just their face, their performance. Nothing really besides a camera. It's like you said, it's almost like a play, filmed for a movie. So yeah, kudos to every single person in this movie. They really made it.
I'm sure they couldn't do. I don't know the technology of how film worked back then, but I'm sure they couldn't do 50 takes. They had to nail it in the first or second take or whatever. They couldn't re-record their dialogue after the fact. I mean, they had to. So many movies do that nowadays, where they go back into a sound.
No ADR in this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what it was called. So definitely kudos to the entire cast, because there isn't really a weak performance. It's just, when we talk about it, how Van Helsing and Dracula are just, one step ahead.
Standouts,
standouts. Is there anything else you wanted to cover? I mean, we kind of covered it all already.
I really, 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 guys, if you have not watched this movie in a bit, or if you've never watched it and you're afraid to watch it because you don't like black and white or it's old, you really should watch this movie, because it will show you how many other movies that you've already seen have been influenced by this one. And I don't know, how do you feel? Are you a vampire guy? A vampire subgenre guy?
Oh,
do you like you love?
Yes.
Yeah. So
yes, love vampires.
So again, and especially, I didn't realize how much I do. I love this subgenre so much. It's probably one of my favorites. But if you're a vampire person and you watch all the vampire horror movies, you really owe it to yourself.
Twilight.
Yeah. We're all fucking Twilight.
Yeah.
You really owe it to yourself to see where it all started, because you'll watch the newer ones, like a Renfield or something. Like, oh my god, it's so great to see movies today are still being made with this and Nosferatu still in mind. So I don't know, it's just so special.
Love me some vampire. I want to be a vampire. That's like the one mythical. Concept that I would love to be, immortal and, so cool. Do you watch What We Do in the Shadows, the show on FX?
I watch it, but I'm not caught up on it, so yeah.
Okay. I binged it. I'd never seen it before. I binged it last year, and I'm like obsessed. I love that show. It's so funny.
I mean, again,
I just love that. I never saw the movie, though. The movie, I heard it wasn't that great.
The movie. I think I have the movie.
Yeah.
I think it's good enough. It's good.
Yeah, it's good. Okay.
Have you seen Monster Squad?
I have, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fucking... All right.
I have.
We'll have to add that to the list.
You really like that one.
Oh, it's fucking one of my favorites.
Yeah, okay.
Favorites. It's better than the Goonies. It's like the 80s kids movie to me. Because it's horror.
Yeah, I could see that. I don't know about better than the Goonies, but...
It is better than the Goonies.
I could see why you would think that, but I'm gonna...
You gotta rewatch it. We're adding it to the list.
All right, before we wrap it up, I wanted to really... I know we didn't kind of go through the scenes, but the ending of this movie is so fucking cool. I really love it. Talk about cinematography. My favorite shot of the whole movie is the staircase shot where he's walking down the staircase, with Mina. Mina, right, with an M? Yeah, with Mina in his name. Yeah. So cool. So cool, those shots. And then obviously you have, it's not a face-off, but it's like a final chase sequence. Between,
which I love that location too, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah, really cool. And then the ending, such an iconic ending, where, then they catch up to them in the coffins and they open the coffin and, Bela Lugosi Dracula is just laying so there, just getting ready to. It's almost sad in a way. I know he's the villain, but he's running from these people that want to kill him, and he has Mina in tow, who's now a vampire as well, and they're kind of just trying to get away, and they know it's sunrise, so they need to get into their coffins, and they have nowhere else to go, and. It I kind of feel sad. It's almost a little sad, just because you care so much about these characters.
You feel all the emotion in that moment too.
Mm-hmm. And it's very somber. I love the delivery. Really, it's very somber because they realize these were once people. Mina was a person, and so was Dracula was once a person. So you really feel that through the screen. At least I do.
I do 100%. I feel like again, they're giving their everything in Bela Lugosi. You kind of feel a little bit for Dracula in those moments. It's
Yeah.
crazy. And I do love the coffin scenes even throughout, like when you see it slowly open. Again, that's another trope, but it's so well done. It's just it's a great movie. It's one of the greats. It's one of the first to do it.
Yes, it is. Like you said, Nosferatu and Dracula, we wouldn't have any of the vampire movies, horror in general.
I feel like,
yeah,
yeah.
It's just, what more can you say?
Yeah, guys, give really I mean, this is the perfect time of year to give it a rewatch if you haven't seen it in a bit, or if you haven't seen it at all. You know, it's on Prime. You really have no excuse. Just check it out. It's an hour and 15 minutes of your time. And if you don't come away at least appreciating it, then you're not all right up there. I don't know.
I don't know if you want to do official Never Split Up moments, but I'm just gonna pick Jonathan. He should have just cut his losses and got the fuck out of there. I mean, just leave the movie. Like, she's not worth it, bro. Some strange shit is going on. So I guess it would be him if I had to pick one. Yeah,
mine would be the people like warning Renfield not to go to the castle, and he's just like, lolly dolly. Let's go right up. A typical Never Split Up, but that's another trope. Like, you're not listening to the local village people who are telling you don't go there, and he's the first one there. So I love it. I mean, I would bring more attention to that. This is the movie that created a lot of Never Split Up moments rather than picking a specific one, but that would be mine. Is Renfield.
Okay, well, who wants to do the honors of rating this dare I say perfect movie, because
it is.
It has to be, right? I mean, not that I want to give it a 10 out of 10, but like I kind of do. Yeah, I mean, how do you not I'm trying to draw a comparison.
If you want me to take it, I'm just going to say, if I'm rating it based off of what it means to cinema and horror, it's 100% a 10 out of 10. And even me, I love it so much.
Yeah.
If I'm rating it personally, I just said in the beginning, it's not when I'm not gravitated to this like I am to Halloween and Scream.
Yeah.
But, like those movies are me. But this movie is something, when I do watch it, I'm reminded of like, oh, this is a perfect movie. So again,
I know.
For cinema, it's a 10. And it's hard for me to come up with a personal score because, again, I'll admit, like, I don't watch it a couple times a year like I do for Halloween and Scream, but I'll watch it every few years. So I don't know. I think average out both of those things, it's gotta, it's gotta be like a 9.5 for me. I mean, it's gotta be.
We're
like
splitting
right
hairs.
there,
I kind of take the hybrid approach. What you're saying, because it is a personal score. I have to factor in those other factors. I touched on this when we did our review of the original Black Christmas, how I almost bumped that up quite a bit higher just because of how important it was to the slasher genre. And talk about creating tropes and everything. So this is the same, only magnified times 1,000.
8 million.
Yeah, so it really doesn't even matter what my score is. I mean, you said a 9.5. I'll give it a 9.5 as well. I mean, I don't know, just to have something on paper. But it's a perfect movie. Everyone should watch this movie at least once. And with the right mindset going in, knowing what you're getting yourself into, and really just sit back and appreciate it for what it is. Yeah. I mean, it's fucking Dracula, man. It's more like you said it. Just to wrap it up and to come full circle, you said in the beginning of the episode, he's more than iconic, and I can't help but agree, because we go back to our villains list and how we both had Michael Myers as our favorite villain. He's an icon of the genre. To put Dracula in the same category is just not fair to Michael Myers or Dracula. It's just a different category. So he's, like you said, he's more than he's like a godfather. He's a founding father almost, like a Mount Rushmore founding father of cinema, not just horror, just cinema in general. So it's really hard to understate how important, or overstate, I should say, how important this movie is. And credits to everyone involved. Thank you so much for helping shape what we love to watch, and wouldn't have this podcast probably without that movie.
Yeah, we wouldn't have horror. Yeah, I think it's you're so right. And I think when I watched this, I was remembering that episode that we did, and I was like the one who was like, I can't even put these Universal monsters in the list because they're like
now you're feeling guilty, aren't you?
Like, and I'm just like, it's just like, it's true because, like you said, they are the reason why we have it. So they just belong, in their own little realm. So yeah, I agree 100%.
Yeah, I know. Okay, awesome. So that wraps up Dracula. That was a lot of fun discussing that. We never really discussed this movie together before, so it was really fun kind of rewatching this for the first time in a couple years and discussing it with you. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Please, again, follow us on our social media channels. We're on X and Instagram at neversplituppod. We also have a Facebook page. We post there. We have, polls going on all the time. We're always trying to interact with you guys. So please, give us feedback or let us know what you think of the movies that we cover. Our last episode, again, just thank you everyone for the warm welcome back. It's doing some good numbers already as a comeback episode. I wasn't sure how it was going to do, like you were saying, if we were going to get left in the dust or not, but I'm glad people still care.
They still like us.
Yeah. And we're just really excited. October's right around the corner. By the time we release this episode, it is the 25th of September. So this is our last episode in September, and before we know it, it's October. So do you want to, you kind of touched on it, do you want to announce our next two episodes?
I do, because I think it's important, because one of them's a new release. So we kicked off, this, I guess, after our return spooky season with Dracula, and I thought it's very fitting because our next two episodes we're gonna stick in the vampire realm. We're gonna cover the original Salem's Lot from the 70s, and then right after that one, the new Salem's Lot is coming out on Max, unfortunately, on October 3rd, not in theaters, on Max, so whatever. But make sure you guys watch it, because after we cover the old one, we're gonna watch the new one, and then the following week we're gonna cover that brand new movie. So we're gonna do both Salem's Lot movies back to back. So make sure you guys tune into the old one, watch our episode, and make sure you watch the new one, because we're gonna get right into it after it's released. So I'm very, very, very excited for that. I mean, if anyone knows me, they know how much Salem's Lot means to me. So yeah, it's gonna be really fun to actually cover a new release right after it comes out. So I'm so stoked.
Yep, so the original Salem's Lot is going to be released on Wednesday the 2nd. And then Thursday the 3rd is when the new one comes out, everyone.
Correct.
So that is the night we are recording. So we are literally, you're bummed it's not in theaters, but this allows us to watch it on streaming as soon as it comes out. And this is a first for us. Not only have we not covered a brand new release like this, like the week of, but we're literally going to sit down and record right after watching this movie. So it's going to be our initial raw thoughts. We can't watch it multiple. I mean, I guess we could technically watch it a couple
take
times.
Off work and
watch I unfortunately probably can't do that. So I'm not going to even have the time. So yeah, guys, it's going to be fun. So that'll be released on Wednesday the 9th. So we'll give you guys almost a week to watch it yourselves,
right,
before the episode comes out. But just know that that's going to be our raw, honest reaction to seeing it for the first time. And I know.
And you watched the trailer, right?
Yes, I did.
Okay, yeah, I'm excited. I'm a little concerned. The only thing I think it has the atmosphere down. I'm just a little concerned about some of the VFX. I might think it might go on VFX overload, but we'll see.
I liked the trailer. I thought it was a little too clean, looking. Does that make sense?
I just hope it's not just. I'm not dissing it, but I just hope it's not just a Conjuring it, that kind of. I just want it to be Salem's Lot still.
Yeah,
and I know.
Yeah.
The creators of the Conjuring are, in charge.
I think it looks solid. I saw people dogging on the trailer. I didn't really get that.
A great trailer. It's some moments of VFX, I'm like, oh, I want it to be scary vampires like the original. Let's keep it practical. People.
Okay.
So we'll see. Yeah. But I'm ready for it. I'm stoked.
Yep. And keep a lookout, everyone, for the schedule. So those are going to be 2 episodes. We also have, after that, we have 4 more episodes in October.
damn.
We're going to be doing a double release the week of Halloween, so look out for that. We'll post that full schedule. Not to spoil it, we'll hold off on spoiling the whole month. We have it planned out, but there's some big episodes coming your way, so stay tuned. But for now, I'm Nolan. That's Anthony. This is the Never Split Up podcast, and we will catch you next time. Bye.